Morning, welcome back. It's the last garden tour before serious harvest, I guess. I checking the weather and checking my records from the last couple of years. It's been up in the October when I done my harvest. Yesterday I checked the weather and they were forecasting middle of next week that we were going to get dumped down with 100 millimeters of rain. And then of course I checked it this morning and they've got that lowered and spread right throughout the entire week. So most of next week is going to be wet. Most of this week is going to be dry. However, right now we'll go around and talk about what is in the garden. Most stuff is still in the garden. And what we plan if we're going to change anything for next year. Tomatoes, I would have had more ripe ones than I do have, but what I want to do with tomatoes, you see better down here, you see how they're all laying over. Now I did put in that stake, but you see by where it's tied on, and then it's a big long vine. I'm hoping that next year when I plant the tomatoes, that I'll remember to put in 2 stakes for each plant and have them fairly high, like maybe 4 feet high. Then I'll tie up whatever vines that I want. Here's another one, see? Laying right out. Now for the most part, the year before last and last year, I was able to let them just do their thing. And a lot of them I technically could now, and maybe it's the year. Especially this one here. This is early Siberian, I found out. But when a tomato is down on the ground, it gets eaten right away. Whereas the other ones, other varieties of tomatoes, don't seem to do that. I got some really beautiful big tomatoes. There's a lot. See, even this one here, it seems like it's starting to lighten up. So if I bring that in the house, it might actually just lighten up. Ripen up, I mean. These, the bush beefsteak tomato, they still seem to be doing fine. This is the first one that I've seen that's starting to ripen. But there is a lot of tomatoes. I noticed this one here. I'm going to take it off because, oh, it dislodged from there and it's rotting. I don't know what happened with that. There's a potato plant in there that has died back. And the squash plants, they're all dying back now. You'll see when I get up to the other ones. There's the occasional good leaf on them, but most of the leaves are starting to turn brown now. And the same thing with the cucumbers. So this week I'll take all the squash in. You see here's more squash that's dying back. All the squash plants along here. And that's not giving any life to the squash that's down there now. So I might as well take them in case we get a bunch of rain and they try to swell up. Don't think those potato plants that are growing are going to grow anymore now. There's no grapes on this grapevine. There is, however, some grapes on here. I don't know how big these grapes are supposed to grow, but last year was the first year that I actually got grapes on this. And this year there's more, and they ripened up, so I will take these in today, I think. So that's the first real harvest of grapes I got off that grapevine, and it'll be just better and better from now on each year. Wind is blowing. I hope it's not too bad in the mic. I think I do have some potatoes growing in here, you know, and that we'll find out in the coming days. Got the stakes up and mulched around these trees, so this is starting to look nice along here now. I have a plan for next year to keep the slugs away from these, but you'll have to wait till next year to find out what that plan is. I think it's going to work. Technically, I could harvest the tops of those those cabbage, you know, and it's perfectly good to eat. Last year, the Jerusalem artichoke did have some flowers on them. This year, there's a little bud right there, but I don't think it's going to get any chance to come to anything. I didn't think to write down last year when the buds actually started on the Jerusalem artichoke. If you grow mulberry, to me the color of these leaves is kind of worrying. It almost looks like a tree, a dying tree. But no, that's the way mulberry goes in the fall. So you look up at some of the leaves now that are turning on the birch, same thing, right? They just turn yellow. Just that the mulberry is a little lighter yellow than the birch are. I don't know what happened with this gooseberry, but it did start to put out leaves again. After it lost its leaves, it just dropped all its leaves, and then it started to put out leaves again, so it's quite alive, and come spring it'll leaf out again. But yeah, I don't know what happened. I never seen any bugs eating them or anything. I've got the frames out here, and I'll just get a tarp in the shed. We've got cold weather, a cold night forecast 2 weeks out for these. They don't look to be really that healthy though. They kind of got the what looks to be beetle damage, those little holes, and kind of curled up like they're not too healthy. I don't know what's up with that. I've been cutting this back and cleaning up now that the weather is, of course, cooled down. When I started in August, right? I couldn't put up with the heat in July, but now I'm cooling. I've got this mowed back some more, and hopefully, when I planted the plum tree and the cherry tree here, I put 4 little golden raspberry canes down in between them, and now the golden raspberries are spread back there, and I'm having second thoughts about having the golden raspberries in between the 2 trees, because they get in the way when you're trying to harvest the plums and the cherries. There's over 250 species of bumblebees. That's the one that's easily recognizable because it's got its orange band. It is an orange banded bumblebee. Now, with respect to the golden raspberries, they do this better than the red raspberries. They put on a flush. If you get a long enough growing season, you'll get a small harvest in the fall, And then come the next year, see, this is last year's cane. You had to pot out, lengthen out the side shoots, and you get a whole bunch on the tip of each side shoot. So you get 2 harvests off each cane with golden raspberries. But I want to clean this out between the 2 trees now, and then decide on something lower to put back there, something that I can kind of step over so that I can harvest the cherries and the plums easy. Yeah, I'm going to take this one off. Now it has to be like the 20th of this month or something. Take this one off again and put down maybe this one. It has grown really nice over this year, and the way those containers are put together, I mean, it'll just slip right down there right nice, and it won't even know it's been moved. So it should come back next year nice and strong. The sooner I can get one of these flowering, then the sooner I'll get berries on this, because this is the female. Of course, that's another task. This asparagus is actually doing fairly well there now. I just got to get the grass and that out from among it. Once again, the squash plants, some spots they seem to be doing okay, but then depending on the air currents, I guess, they're all turning brown, going crinkly. And yesterday I did a walkabout and I looked in here and this is what I found. So that was one of the worries. I went in and checked the weather afterwards, and they were talking about this 100 millimeters rain in 2 days. Now I'm like, if that happens, the rest of the squash might split as well. So I'd better get them in. So that's why sometime this week I'll have them in. As far as the Queensboro squash, there's 5 that are mature already. So they can be just picked, and I think there's a couple more that are still immature. So if you come to the red raspberries, they don't, sometimes you might get a berry or 2 out on the tip, but for the most part it's the second year canes that they produce on. Then we go in, we've got all those apples yet to be harvested, and they're falling. I actually started picking, I was checking my records this morning, and I started picking apples about a week earlier this year than last year, but they were falling. So I was just basically picking the ones up off the ground, but I did bring in the ladder and pick them off the tree as well. And now that's for this one tree here. The Ida Red over on the other side, it was like the middle of September that I was picking the apples, but this in-house apple, they were a little later to be ripen up. Herb garden done beautifully this year. When you empty a bed, don't forget you just cover it in a mulch. This is meadow clippings. Now the potatoes, Kennebec potatoes, you see they're all turned Most of them are turned yellow. The ones that aren't yellow are really light in color. I've got plants over there that are dead altogether. So I can go ahead and harvest these now. I've been studying this, and I've got plans for these inside beds, but that'll be in a future video. We'll sit and talk about that. I'm going to try the chickpeas in full sun next year. You can see the bean plants are dying back bit by bit. This bed is another one that is part of what I've been studying this year. I think I know why the rutabaga don't do as well right here as they did over there. I'm expecting these cabbage and kale to survive the winter actually and come back next year. These two kohlrabi, they didn't size up, but they're elongated. I'm going to pick these, and I'm afraid now that they'll be hard already, but I'll find out here now today. You can see this squash there, the leaves turn black, and this one they're all turned brown. So that squash that's in there, that's not getting any more life from the plant now. And for the most part, there's a couple of green leaves on these squash, but you see how much browning is on them, right? The rhubarb didn't do too well this year, but they say when you plant the rhubarb, you don't harvest it the first year anyway. So it's just a matter of, I think, that it's getting settled in now, and next year it should do fairly well. I was kind of worried when they were saying we were going to get that big dump of rain, whether rutabaga would split and carrot, right? Now we can stand, say, 20 millimeters of rain in a day, but 50 millimeters, well, it was 30 to 40 millimeters rain one day and 35 to 45 the next day, and it's like I'm gonna have split carrots too if that happens. So I'll keep checking the forecast, and if it's getting close and they're saying something like that, then I'll have to come out and take up all the carrots before we get a downpour like that. The strawberries, they're ever-bearing. That should be a beautiful patch next year. But yeah, they're ever-bearing, so as long as the temperature is the right temperature, they'll keep on putting out flowers, and as long as the pollinators are around, they'll get pollinated and they'll produce strawberries. I'm really impressed with this. I remember it's latter half of August I put these in there, and they've grown nicely. So for next year, I remember that's one thing that I can put in as soon as the garlic comes out. This is the last, was the strongest of the squash plants, and now you see all the brown spots that are appearing in the leaves, so the plant is starting to die back. And those 4 or 5 whatever is in there, they've been on there long enough. They're mature anyway now. So there's 2 different kinds of tomatoes here, eh? You see this one here, it's a little different, a little bigger. We go over around, I should show you this truss over here. It's more of a cherry tomato truss, see? Interestingly, you see that little squash down there? So there's more than those 4 or 5 big ones. There's a little one here that's growing, and then there's this one that's gotten this size. Lots of cosmos flowers. I collected some heads. I'm going to collect some more heads. I want to make sure that I put a good layer of compost on this bed next year. I didn't put any on there this year because I was wondering if it would prevent the cosmos and chamomile flowers from growing. If it don't, then great, but I'll collect some dried heads anyway, and then when I put the compost down, I've got seeds that I can sprinkle around wherever I want cosmos to pop up then, right? The thing about the onions, I took up onions before. This one seems to be going really strange. That they didn't fold over out by themselves, and after I had taken them up, they continued to try and grow. And you see, this one here, even though the neck is bent over, it's not softened up. And here we got two shoots. This is still growing. Same with this one, and that one over there. So while the wind blew them over, they weren't ready to give up yet, and they're continuing to grow. I have some here that are not like that, but for the most part, most of the onions here are still saying they want to grow more. Now the question is, can they split if we do get downpour of rain now at this time of year? Will it do really extra damage to the onions? I mean, I got big onions there. It's not like I'd be overly tore up if I had to take them up. I just want them to be ready to dry up and not continuing to try to grow once I got them picked up. Yeah, you see this one, it's dying from the southern end. It's a frustration. This is why I give up on it earlier, because trying to pick out all the brown ones and leave the green ones, and then you got to leave the plant in the ground, it's frustrating with these bush beans. I imagine with the pole beans, when you can grow them up a trellis or whatever, they're easy to see the beans and it's easy to pick them. But it's not the same with this. It's better if you could just pull the entire plant up, pick all the beans off, and then throw the plant back for mulch. But for 2023, this is the last time you'll see this garden filled like this. I'll be taking things up this week, and same over here. Oh yeah, I never did mention the red potatoes though. You see, they're still perfectly healthy, and I've got two beds over here. I moved them back because long before they give up, they flop over, and they're all out in this path. You would have seen that in earlier videos. But some of the potatoes were showing on top of the soil. So I took the plants and I curled them back in over the bed. And then where they couldn't get any plants in over the potatoes, I got some meadow clippings and threw on top of them so they wouldn't get sunburned. I didn't do that with that bed over there, but this is the example of why I'm like, this no dig stuff. You have to have initial dig. If you've got crabgrass, quackgrass, and stinging nettles, that kind of thing, you got to get those roots out of there, because there's nothing going to stop them from growing. And yeah, that's what you get, right? But yeah, as I was saying, this is the last tour before I take a lot of stuff out of the garden. The Kenbeck potatoes will be coming up The squash is coming out, the beans are coming out. That's all this week. And depending on, I'll keep watching the weather forecast, and depending on what that says, I'll decide on, like I say, the carrots. I don't want them to split. And the onions I don't know about. So if you know about the onions, can they withstand a downpour of rain? I want to leave them as long as I can, really. But if a downpour of rain is going to drastically affect their storage capability, then I want to take them up, of course. That's October the 1st, the last tour before the great harvest. Hope you found it interesting, and hit the like button. Leave me your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next video.